When we last left the 1974 GMC Pulp Wood truck, we had succeeded in removing the carburetor and the next step was to replace the plug wires, which have been done. The left and right side, artfully tied with a piece of ribbon that I found on the ground. I think that was part of this truck. We also have the permanent battery, which is right there, in color-coded red and green tones. And so the next step, I believe, is going to be to put a carburetor where that napkin is. And here is that carburetor right there. So previously, the carburetor was reassembled after purchasing this carburetor kit from the store. It's got a number of parts here, quite interesting, none of which were used. The only part used was the gasket, a little paper gasket that was used. But it also, after assembly, I noticed that there was a set of instructions written in English and a number of helpful diagrams. However, none of the diagrams appear to pertain to this carburetor. And so therefore, the plan was to reassemble the carburetor using a combination of common sense and disregard for any instructions. Now that that's out of the way, we're going to, just go ahead and get the carburetor and try to stick it on there. I'm going to pull out the little paper covers that are in the intake that have thus far kept any dirt and spark plugs from falling into the engine. Carefully put that out to the side here. And then what we're going to do is consider whether we're going to use the old, I want to call it intake gasket, or the new intake gasket that came from the box. I think I like the black one better, and so we'll just throw away that one and come back here to the old one. We're going to try to see if we can set the carburetor in. That's backwards. Let's turn it around, because this little blue, helpful blue marker is where the gasoline's going to come in. And then we're going to put in 4 bolts to bolt this in, when actually there were only 2 bolts to begin with. So hopefully we're going to reduce the vacuum leaks by half. That's next. Well, I have it installed now with the 2 bolts that I decided to use based on where the gasket was. There's a bolt over here and a bolt over here. However, interestingly, over here where the back bolt is, there's a massive gap between the bottom part of the carburetor and the gasket, which makes me think that would be an enormous vacuum leak. So what I think I'm going to do is take the carburetor off and investigate it, because I was looking at the old one, and interestingly, it says the word D-O-T, D-T-O-P, as if this would be the top side and that would be the bottom. Who knew whether that made any difference? But let's see if for some reason the orientation on the gasket that I put in was somehow off. So with the two bolts pulled out, we're going to pull out the distributor. Oops, didn't get it all the way out over here. So we're going to give it a few more taps on that bolt. See if we can get it loose. That should do it. Now lift the carburetor out. Oh, didn't get all that one out either. Let's get that out a little more. Now that should do it. Okay, out it comes. Yeah. All right, let's investigate this whole situation of top and bottom. Now this is the way that I have it, and it says, oh, we had it in this way. Nice. And carefully inscribed is the word Durf Datu. This may be French. Actually, I did have it on the top, so that's good. But I had the front and back mixed up. So we'll try it again. As it turned out, this little gap over here that I thought was so important is not. That's just part of the body of the carburetor. So I guess we dodged a bullet on that. And so now we've got the throttle linkage hooked up. Oops, it came loose. Well, that's not gonna really work very well. Right there. Now, see, it needs a cotter pin or something right there. I don't have one. And now I'm gonna start looking at some of these hoses. I just noticed there was a hose here that goes to this vacuum, and then it plugs in there, but it's so torn up. I don't think it's gonna do whatever it's supposed to do, so I have to go shopping. Just lay that right there. And then there was another one back here on the back, also busted up. I was gonna try to use this one, but it's a slightly different size. So I'm hunting around in the engine compartment, and I came across this. Hey, and it could work actually. Oh no, that is, whoops. No, that's just a belt. The belt is also holding together the hood, so I'm going to kind of have to leave that alone. But over here there's a hose. Maybe I could rub that off. I don't know what that even does, this little thing. And so I'm just going to rob this hose and cut it off to the appropriate length and see if I can replace the hose for the carburetor. Okay, it's on to the fuel system now. The original fuel system is right here. And this is the gas cap. And I'm not real sure that is going to work. So we've rigged up a alternate fuel system, which is this plastic can with the spout off, and then the hose goes under the truck and comes out right over here by the fuel pump. All right, so this little jewel right here is the fuel pump, and it has an intake and an outtake. And what we've done is we've bypassed the intake from the old gas tank, and we've run that hose from that gas can. Now we're going to work on the outtake, which is right here, and we're going to run a new hose to where this little blue marker is, and we've already got the line cut, so that should complete the circuit. I'll show you that next. I found an extra radiator hose clamp, and then thriftily used the other ones to construct this basic scenario. I'll put the last one on right there, but we have the outtake hose coming from the pump through this filter. There is a arrow on the filter. I wasn't sure, so I pointed it toward the driver's side, which is probably, well, probably right, 50% chance. And it goes into the carburetor where that little blue marker was. So this completes the fuel circuit. We now have a temporary gas tank, and we're waiting in eager anticipation if the unit turns over, and we'll see if we manage to get any response in life out of the rebuilt carburetor. Now, I know what you're probably saying. You know how these revival videos are. The guy's probably started the truck off camera and he's going to draw us in, but that's not true. I have no earthly idea whether this truck is going to start, and if it does start, will it start moving and run over my scaffolding. Here's the old part that we had, so that's what's left over. And so what we're going to do is slip into the cab. And there's a set of wires over here that have been twisted together. That's very important because that's the theft deterrent device. Previously, those two wires were hanging. The truck wouldn't start, and so we twisted them together, and all of a sudden that solved the issue. Oop, I see the key is on. Let's cut it off for right now. Move all this stuff out of the way. And we're gonna see what happens. I think you'd probably enjoy seeing it from the outside better, so I'll take you out there. Well, here's what we discovered. When I got into the cab, there's no accelerator pedal, so I couldn't give it any gas. Of course, as you know, it's got to pull gas up from the temporary tank up through the pump and into the carburetor, so that function is impeded by the fact that we don't have a gas pedal. Let's see what we can do about that. I may have figured it out. You know this little accelerator bar right there? It had actually come loose because there's nothing holding it on there. And the other thing I noticed is that there was no accelerator return spring. That's this thing right there. That causes the accelerator to return back to its original position when you let your foot off the gas. So maybe, even though I don't have a cotter pin over there, maybe that'll take care of it. And I also noticed that there actually is a accelerator pedal. It's that unit right there. Ooh. It doesn't move. There we go. Oops. That means the things come loose with the cotter pin. So I'm afraid we're going to have to fix that. Now, here's the issue. I got my throttle linkage lined up, and I have a cotter pin in the form of a little piece of bent wire there. And it's holding, and from here, the carburetor throttle seems to work okay in return, but inside the cab, there's no response on the throttle pedal, so there's still some linkage that has to be worked out. But I kind of forgot, actually the way most people get these cars started is by pouring some 2-cycle gas right down the carburetor, and I forgot that step. Now, one thing I think you need to see is with all the turning, we haven't gotten any gas into the filter yet. So it's taken a little while to prime that. I think we can help that possibly by pouring some gas just right down the carburetor manually. And I'll give that a try and we'll see what happens. The moment of truth. Let's see if we can get the old Pulp Wood truck cranked after 23 years. Okay. I think. Turn the key. And here we go.